fashion industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry that serves looks for the current generation of trends. The industry employs fashion designers, models, photographers, and other creative professionals alike.
However, one thing that the fashion industry does not display as prominently as their clothes is
the way that their clothes are made.
The technical definition of fast fashion is making clothes that were very popular and producing them at very high volumes and getting them into the stores very quickly in order to capture the moment.
Though this has its benefits, the negatives far outweigh them. Fast fashion brings copious ethical concerns as well as detrimental effects to our environment.
Fast fashion was made to be, here today, gone tomorrow. It's inexpensively made as a result, and it usually ends up in a landfill. It does not have a second, third, let alone fourth, fifth life.
The average pool is filled with about 15 to 18,000 gallons of water. On the contrary, it takes about 1,800 gallons of water to produce the cotton that it takes to make one pair of jeans. In other words, the average pool can only produce about 7 to 9 pairs of jeans. When searching jeans on popular fast fashion site Shein, you will be met with roughly 4,800 results of new arrival jeans. That's a lot of water.
Another problem that fast fashion exacerbates is the problem of overconsumption. We interviewed James McKinnon, the author of the book, The Day the World Stopped Shopping, about this subject.
Right now, how much we consume is actually the biggest driver of our global environmental crises, from habitat loss to toxic pollution to climate change.
Fast fashion not only affects the environment, but it also affects the people around us.
Bangladesh is one of the countries that has the greatest amount of clothing production, and they make literally pennies for every entire garment they make.
Working conditions like these aren't uncommon. Outsourced labor is a loophole used mostly by companies such as H&M, Forever 21, and Gap, who can't domestically operate at the cheap prices they desire.
As a result, they outsource their labor from places with fewer labor laws and regulations, such as India, China, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, and Cambodia.
Companies like Shein are the perfect example of truly capitalizing on the improved technology being produced in countries where there's no regulations, maximizing how much you get per penny from every worker.
Due to these problems, Gabriel and I have decided that we want to see a change, and we want to see it now. Thankfully, some members of our government are on the same page.
We spoke to New York Assembly member Anna Kells about her recent development of what she and her colleagues call the Fashion Act. This act not only requires transparency, but also holds businesses accountable and enforces change.
The way it's written is that the Attorney General can fine a company up to 2% of their global gross income for not complying with the bill.
This bill is currently in the Consumer Protection Committee, and we are eagerly waiting for the day that it passes, since legislation like this could influence the actions of other states as well.
In addition, U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York announced the Fabric Act. According to Vogue Business, the bill would require hourly wages for garment workers, and it will also prohibit piecework nationwide. However, there are some advantages to fast fashion.
Well, it's really easy to say don't buy fast fashion, but that's not particularly fair to people that may be all they're able to afford. I mean, some of these things are very inexpensive and available and accessible to people at lower income levels.
Fast fashion is also one of the biggest economic pillars of the fashion industry and is needed to continue to provide for the country's economy.
We have what I call the consumer dilemma, where the planet seems to need us to slow down our consumption. The economy needs us to consume more and more.
However, Mr. Joel McCoward thinks that businesses have a greater calling to social responsibility than to wealth and profit.
Our reputations are what we're going to live and die on. Our reputations to our employees, to our communities in which we do business, and all of the other stakeholders in and around our companies.
Thankfully, some fast fashion companies have listened and are declaring more sustainable efforts.
65% of H&M's materials are now from recycled or more sustainable sources. 100% of their cotton is organic, recycled, or sourced in a more sustainable way.
However, what most all of these businesses have in common is that they pride themselves on affordability, which is almost entirely accredited to fast fashion practices. We have to ask these companies what they value more, affordability or sustainability.
Even though fast fashion helps low-income households, there are other options that they could turn to.
This is a fashion show that you're witnessing. Though it may not look like your typical Balenciaga show, that's for good reason. What's unique about our fashion show is that everybody in it, including its hosts, are wearing at least one item of clothing that's either thrifted, secondhand, or passed down from a relative.
One way that we can combat fast fashion is to shop at local thrift stores instead of buying from big brands. One additional benefit to this is that thrift stores offer similar prices as fast fashion. Another way you can help the fashion crisis is by purchasing less garments and by keeping them in circulation for longer periods of time. This can raise concerns for low-income communities, but journalist J.B. McKinnon has something to say about that.
The argument that the poorer people are benefiting from cheap and disposable goods is, I think, something of a red herring, because one problem is that they have to be purchased and repurchased. Clothing that's badly made doesn't last. In a way, it is the people who have the least ability to pay that are being caught up the worst.
The Fabric Act, introduced by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, in conjunction with the provisions of the State-Level Fashion Act by Assemblymember Kells, would collectively create a near-perfect bill to be pushed through Congress and placed on President Biden's desk. As newly elected members of Congress, Gabriel and I would vote for that.
While these are great first steps, there is still so much more to be done.
There are garment workers suffering from harsh labor conditions all across the globe. And on top of that, our planet is dying because of fast fashion. And we want to do something about it.
For the sake of the world.
Anyway.
Audio rolling.